Howdy champs, my name is Mohit and people, today I'm gonna work up some gradient magic. Before I talk any further people, let me straight away show you a browser preview. Now this box is basically a div. This stripe at the top and this design, which is the diagonal background stripes, everything was actually created purely through CSS, through the background property. In fact, to be specific, I've used multiple backgrounds, comma separated. We all know that with CSS3 we can include multiple background images. But what some of you might not know is that we can work up multiple background gradients. So that's exactly what I've done. I've used a background gradient, which is this diagonal stripes. For the division for the top, I've used another gradient. So if I take a bird's eye view of the code, you see it has a division with an ID of gr. Okay, then it has an h1 element followed by a p element which has some lorem ipsum. Okay, and this ID gr, which belongs to this div, has a width of 500, a height of 500. Basically the division is a perfect square of 500 pixels each. In fact, I'm going to redo the whole project, people. For you, I'm going to scrap the whole code, I'm going to delete the whole code, and I'm going to code it from the very beginning for you so that you'll understand things a lot better. We're just taking a bird's eye view and we'll go back to doing it all over from the very beginning, from scratch. Okay, and then I've used background property, as you can clearly see out here. If you see, we have used linear gradient out here, comma separated by another linear gradient. Just like we can use multiple background images, we can use linear gradients, multiple linear gradients, comma separated. Okay, right. And then I've created a diagonal stripey structure out here and a straight stripe out here. Right, and then I've used the background size property to size my bars, the diagonal bars and the horizontal bar at the top. And I've also used the background repeat property, setting the first structure as repeat x, repeat only along the x-axis, and the other one has been set to repeat, basically, which means repeat along the x and the y-axis, which is also the default, people. Right. In fact, let's not delete the code. I may have to refer it. So what we'll do is we'll create a fresh new file and let's save it up. Let's call it gr for gradient, just keeping things short. Right. And people, I'm using Sublime Text 2. It's Emmet enabled. Emmet is a package. There's a procedure through which you can install Emmet. You can check it up through several YouTube tutorials available today. Right. If you don't have Emmet enabled editor, you can actually code out the normal way, the slower way, but I'm going to, since it's a code assist plugin or a package, I'm going to code out a real really quickly for you. So let's start with the HTML5 doc type. So HTML:5, press tab. I'm sorry, in fact I should have saved it as an HTML document. That's one mistake I actually did. So file, save as, it should be gr.html, beg your pardon. Yeah, that makes more sense. HTML:5 tab, document gradient magic or whatever. Right. Let's create the body first. So inside the opening and the closing body tags, a div with an ID of, let's say, gr and tab. Right, and let's define gr to begin with. So after the title tag, type style tab to expand the code. Okay, that's using Emmet, and then tab, so hash gr, opening and closing brackets, let's say a width of 500 plus a height of 500. Tab to expand the code. Very cool. Right, so the body contains one single division which has an ID of gr, which has a width and a height of 500 pixels each. Very cool. Let's say Control S and save the document up. Cool. People, since I'll be using the background property, the background shorthand property, in fact for different browsers you may need to include vendor prefixes like dash, webkit dash, 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 ms dash, etc. But I'm actually skipping it. You can check the browser compatibility and include vendor prefixes like dash, mouse dash, etc. Okay, but since I'm using the latest browsers right now, so I don't need to actually do it. It's actually meant only for the older browsers. So do a compatibility check, people, and include the vendor prefixes yourself. But for simplicity's sake, to code out real quick, I'm actually skipping it. Alright, now, so the background property. Alright, as I said, I'm going to include two different backgrounds. So let's start off with the first one. So linear gradient. People, you need to be good with how to create linear gradients. If you do not understand how linear gradients are actually created, it will be a good idea to actually check the literature out, to check some other tutorials out on how to create gradients, Css3 gradients. Okay, because I'm gonna breeze through this. I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail as to how this was created. Right, so linear gradient, and then I'm going to include two colors. So the first one I think was black, the other one was let me just check. Yep, was a hash 555. Let's say save. People, if at this point I were to take up a browser preview, let's see how things look like right now. Let me bring up the local site folder and let's yep. So this is the way my box looks like right now. So if you see from the default top to the bottom, we have a black to a hash 555 gradient. Righto. Next, people, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the background size property. Now this allows you to create that reduce the background size. I'm going to limit it to, let's say, 45px only. Alright, and let's bring the browser up. Let's refresh. You see it's actually created blocks of 45 pixels each. Right. Next, what I need to do is I need to use the background repeat property. So background, let's say a repeat, and let's say I would want it to be repeating only along the x but not along the y axis. So that's pretty simple to do. So I'm gonna say repeat x. Okay, and let's save the document up, bring the browser up, let's refresh. When I say let's save the document up, simply means that I'm actually pressing Control S to save the document. And people, you see I've actually managed to push one single stripe and remove the other stripes. I'm not repeating it along the y-axis but only along the x-axis. Very cool. Part 1 accomplished. Right. Next, people, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, just as we can include multiple background images, we can include multiple gradients, comma separated. So let me insert a comma. Right. The next bit of code I'm going to bring over from the earlier documents is a little long-winded to write. It's a little complicated. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste it, and then I'm going to explain it to you. So just copy it from here and paste it in the new document like so. Okay, so this is the first linear gradient. This is the second one. The second one is at a degree rotation of -45. So that's actually slanting. That's diagonal. And you see, wherever you see these percentage values, these are actually color stops. And I've used a dual colored stripe. So I've included the color, a darker shade hash 222 and a slightly milder shade hash 444. The closer you are to 0, the darker it is. The further away you get from it, the lighter it becomes. Okay, so I've used diagonal color stripes 222 444 444 222 222 444 444. So basically that's gonna create a slanting pattern. Now I clearly said that you need to understand how to write your linear gradients properly. So if you do not understand this concept well, I'm not going to take you into a lot of detail. Okay, I'm just gonna this is more or less a bird's eye view when it comes to explaining the CSS for the gradients. So this is the 45-degree rotation. It's a dual colored stripe, so 222 444 are the colors involved. These are the color stripes, people. This is where this is the point at which the color stops and the new color begins. Alright, so as you see, the different colors are actually comma separated at 25%, at 50%, at 75%, and when you don't specify, basically 100%. Right, so at different junctures I've used different colors. That gives you that diagonal stripy structure. Okay, what I'm going to do is this 45px is actually for the first linear gradient. If I comma separate and say 100px, basically this is going to apply to the second linear gradient, not the first one. This is going to hit the first linear gradient. This value is going to hit the second linear gradient. Okay, and I'm going to, as far as the repetition for the second background linear gradient is concerned, yes, I would want to it to repeat both along the x as well as the y axis. So repeat, background, repeat, that's it. Let's say file and let's say save, and I should be actually done, in fact. Okay, so you see both my structures are actually created, the one for the top and the one for the bottom. This is my top, so this is 45 degrees in height, people, and no, 45px in height. Alright, it has a top to bottom gradient, which is also the default. Since I had not mentioned the direction of the degrees, it is always top to bottom, and this is slanting at 45. You see how beautifully the diagonal lines are created. I haven't taken into a lot of details as to why I've used those color stops and why I've used those values. I would urge you to check up how CSS3 gradients actually work. And again, people, let me tell you that you need to check out the compatibility with different browsers, older browsers especially, and you may need to include vendor prefixes for them, like dash, mosh, dash, 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 ms dash, dash, webkit dash, etc. Right, which I'm skipping again for ease of coding, for simplicity's sake. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up this division with let's say first with the h1 element. So h1 should have the style attribute. At the same time, I would want it to have some content. So let's say CSS3 really works up some magic. Right. Make sure that the cursor is blinking at the extreme end of line number 20. Press tab to expand the code. As far as style is concerned, I'm going to say C, and I'm going to expand my CSS now, not the HTML, and that will be done through Ctrl+E combination. And the color I would want is deep sky blue, right? Cool. And then I would want a padding left of, let's say, 10px. Ctrl+E to expand the code. Alright, so I'm expanding my HTML as well as my CSS through emit. Let's save the document up, bring the browser up, and let's refresh. And you see I have managed to create the title in the top strip. Alright, let's get back to my document. This time I'm going to insert some lorem ipsum or dummy text. So P with some with the style attribute. So that's gonna go inside the square brackets. Emit follows a spatial format that you need to adhere to, people. And then some content. So lorem 200, let's say, and press tab. The moment I press tab after lorem 200, it creates 200 words of lorem ipsum or dummy text. And then make sure that the cursor is right at the extreme of the curly braces, right? Press tab again to expand the code. The code is expanded, so we have an opening paragraph tag out here which closes out here. And as far as the style goes, people, this time C and let's say Control E to expand the code. To expand my CSS, I would want it to have the color white. At the same time, let's say padding of 10 and Control plus E to expand the code, right? So let's say file and let's say save, bring the browser up. Let's refresh. So basically what I've done is I've created some dummy text lorem ipsum 200 words, pushed it inside opening closing paragraph tags, and through inline styles I've given it a color white. And this is the way things actually stand. So you see how easy it was to create this division, with multiple stripes. The one at the top is completely horizontal, repeats itself along the x-axis. The one at the bottom repeats itself along the x and the y-axis, which is also the default behavior. Repeat is the default behavior. And instead of using background images, people, I've used linear gradients, comma separated, right? And to understand how the bottom diagonal stripy structure or stripes were actually created, you need to have an in-depth understanding of CSS3 Gradients, people, and then you'll probably understand how this was actually done. As I said, I'm not going to take you into the detail of it, at least in this tutorial. I have some other tutorials on CSS3 Gradients. You can check that yourself. So people, I hope you found this information useful. I hope you'll sub. I hope you'll thumb the video up appropriately. I hope so, and I'll definitely hope that you'll keep coming back for more and more tutorials from me. You have a good day. Bye bye. Peace.